story time about how I'm still in love with my toxic ex. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. This is really complicated, but please hear me out before you start judging me in the comments. Ex and I dated for exactly 1 year. When we first met, he was super charming, cute. I mean, he was like the perfect boyfriend. My family loved him, but gradually he started changing. The more serious we got about the relationship, the worse he became. For example, at the beginning of our relationship, we always used to hang out with our friends, and sometimes I would hang out with my own friends on my own. But 2 months into the relationship, he began guilting me. He would tell me that I would rather hang out with my friends, which wasn't even true, and then I would end up staying home, and then he would go out with his friends. He would also tell my parents sometimes that I needed to be taught lessons, like how to respect men and stuff. My parents detested him. One time he came over for Thanksgiving and basically told me that I needed to go change my clothes. He even said that I looked like a whore in front of my cousin. After that, my cousin really hated him and began doing her own research. She found that he was liking girls' pictures on Instagram and that he was leaving dirty comments on their pictures. Once she found all this information, she told me and I confronted him. He told me that he had every right to comment on anyone's pictures because it was just the internet and it wasn't real life. I kind of had to accept what he said because I didn't want any more problems. I asked my cousin to stop searching stuff, but she just didn't let up. Almost every single week, she would send me screenshots of things that he'd comment on girls' pictures. Finally, I told my boyfriend that my cousin had found all this out, and he basically forced me to cut her out of my life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I stay with him? But when things were good, they were really good. He was super loving, affectionate. He always wanted to be with me, and he always prioritized going on dates and having fun. He would always surprise me with fun things. One time he planned this beautiful picnic, and we even stayed in the park and spent the night there. But then he would manage to ruin everything by becoming really jealous and controlling. My dream job was to work in marketing, and I just happened to land this internship at a really popular fashion magazine. When I told him I got the job, he acted really strange. He didn't even congratulate me. A few hours later, he told me that I was trying too hard and that he didn't want a girlfriend that was going to be at work all the time. He also asked me how much I was going to be getting paid because he wanted to make sure it was less than what he earned. So in other words, he was jealous and envious at the same time. Then he insisted that I work around his schedule, so I could only work the days that he was working. Then he told me that if I wasn't spending enough time with him because of my new job, he would break up with me. I took that as the last straw. It was my dream job, but he was making everything terrible. While my entire family was so happy for me, I was crying in bed at night. The next morning, I woke up and texted him and told him that I didn't want to see him. He ran straight to my house. We got in his car to talk, and I proceeded to tell him everything I thought. Then he turned it all around and told me that I wasn't the girl that he fell in love with, and that if I didn't change, he would break up with me. After I told him that I needed him to change, he basically turned everything around and told me that I wasn't the girl that he fell in love with anymore, and that I was the one that needed to change if I wanted to continue in the relationship. And to top it all off, he kicked me out of his car. We didn't speak for about 2 weeks. During that time, I started at my dream job and everything was actually going pretty well. I didn't have the pressure on top of me about him not wanting me to work, and my life was actually getting better. My skin started clearing up and I even started losing weight. In other words, I was really happy. My parents and family were so happy too. But then I see that he starts posting other girls on his Instagram. I knew that he was doing it on purpose, so I tried not to get upset, but I just couldn't help it. Then I made a huge mistake. I messaged him and asked him if he still loved me. Then he called me and we talked on the phone for about 4 hours. By the end of the phone call, we were back together. And guess what? We even agreed to moving in together. I made him promise that he wouldn't be jealous anymore and that he would stop trying to control everything I did. He promised up and down that he would never be that way again. But literally 3 days later, he comes over super drunk, demanding you know what. I said no because my parents were home and I wasn't going to do that in the house with them. Then of course he starts threatening me again, saying that if I don't do it, I don't love him and blah blah blah. So I took advantage and I kicked him out of the house. Then he sent me an essay of a text message breaking up with me and telling me how he doesn't love me anymore. It's been 2 months since that happened. Once again, I'm doing great at work. My family and I are super happy, but I actually miss him. Not only do I miss him, I'm so jealous all the time because I see he's posting girls on his Instagram. I miss being with him and I miss having fun with him, but I don't miss always feeling scared and nervous. I even tried dating a few guys, but nobody compares to him. A few weeks ago, I went on a date with this really nice guy. We connected and went on a few more dates. I posted on my story that I was on a date and my ex went crazy. He actually showed up at the restaurant and told me to come out and talk to him. And I did. I literally left the guy that I was on a date with to go speak to my ex. He told me to leave with him and I said no. He grabbed my purse and threw it on the ground and told me that he would never speak to me again. 3 days later, he was back in my messages begging to see me. But the guy that I was on a date with actually really likes me and asked me to be his girlfriend. I don't know what to do. I love my ex and I want to get back with him, but I know he's crazy. But this new guy's really nice and really caring. What do I do?
I wake up, I'm having a great day, right? I get up out of bed, I check my phone, I go on Twitter. I didn't really tweet much all day, I just kind of forgot and I had stuff to do. And I ended up having to go to Best Buy, okay? And if you don't know what Best Buy is, it's basically like a store filled with just like nerd shit, house appliances, and like DVDs and TVs and shit. I don't know, it's a bunch of stuff. But me personally, I go there for the nerd shit, okay? I love going there. I go to the gaming section, I just look at all the cool new stuff that they get. And I went there today just to like look at some new stuff for my setup because I'm actually moving soon. And it'd be cool to grab some new stuff for when I move. And I was out there looking at stuff, and this guy comes up to me in the store, right? And he's like, hey, you looking for anything, man? I was like, oh, I'm just kind of looking at everything, to be honest. And he's like, well, if there's something you need help with, let me know. I was like, will do, man, will do. And he's like, okay, and he walks away, right? And I'm sitting there on my phone, okay? I pulled my phone out, I was talking to one of my friends, and I'm just texting him, okay? And I look at Snapchat, and I have a bunch of missed Snapchats, okay? Because recently I've been talking about it a little bit. There was that one video I made about that creepy dude. So people have been Snapchatting me nonstop. I was like, you know what? I got some time to kill. I'll look through a few of them, right? I open Snapchat, I start going down the list. I'm specifically not opening the videos just because I know some of you. Luna has a Snapchat. Luna probably doesn't turn his volume down. Let's ear rape him. But just a couple pictures in, I'm already getting photos of people taking photos of like old lady porn and shit like that. Like this kid was literally sending me photos of his computer monitor with old lady porn, like nudes on him. And I'm just like, oh, dude, like what the fuck? So I had to put my phone on sleep, okay? I put it on sleep at the screen where all the Snapchats were in order. So I didn't close out of the app. So I'm like, okay, fuck that. Not the place to be doing this. And I just kept looking at stuff, okay? I end up finding a keyboard that I like. I pick it up. I bring it up to the front and I start checking out. And while the lady at the front is taking my info down and like swiping my card, I have like this card there that like gives me discounts and shit. I'm talking to her while on my phone. I open my phone. And the shitty thing is Twitter and Snapchat and like big social media apps that I have freeze a lot for me, okay? And it's because you guys, you know, I have like a lot of followers and everyone's always interacting with me on there and I'm super active on there. So my fucking apps constantly freeze. Like my Twitter app will literally freeze every 5 minutes, tapping and hitting the home button to unfreeze it. And I'm in no way complaining. I'm very lucky to have a lot of you guys on those social medias and stuff. It's fucking awesome because when I opened my phone, it was frozen on the screen with all the people's Snapchats in order. So I start double tapping the home button a bunch to try and unfreeze it. And I start spamming my finger on the phone trying to unfreeze it. And little did I know when I was spamming my finger, I accidentally opened someone's video, okay? And it literally just couldn't have gone any worse. Like when I'm at home laying in bed and I open your guys' Snapchats off my phone, even the videos, like they're not that bad, okay? Some of them are pretty ear rapey, but since I'm home and I have my volume down already, it's not a big deal. But the amount of unluckiness that just went into my day today and just in this very moment, I had to tap the one video. I didn't tap a picture, I tapped a video. And the video was just this one guy sitting in his room, blaring porn through a sound system and screaming along with it. So it was just a mixture of loud ass moaning, this guy screaming, and porn on his computer monitor while it was blasting through a huge surround sound system. And it took me so fucking long to stop this stupid video from playing because when I first started playing it, it was still frozen on the Snapchat screen. So it was just the audio, so I had no way to like swipe up and try and like stop it. And then it unfroze half the monitor with the porn on it, and I immediately swiped up. So I was able to stop it. And of course, when I finally fucking stopped the video, I look up and just every employee in this area can see me, and I can see them, and they're just giving me this look of like, what did you just play from your phone? And I just held the phone up and I literally explained it how it was. I was like, some asshole sent me a video on Snapchat that was really, really loud and mean and made me look like a creep. And they all just kind of looked back down at their registers and went back to their jobs. I was like, all right, well, at least they know now. And I looked over at the lady that was checking me out and she's like, yeah, I have Snapchat. I know all about that stuff. I was like, thank you. Thank you. But yeah, I walked out of the front door. The front door was right by the register. And I did this like sad walk of shame right by, just trying to like keep my head down because I don't want anyone to know that it was me that had that video playing. And as I walked by, there was a guy in there. There was an employee that like checks people's receipts and shit as they leave. He's like, dude, close your porn before you come into the store. And I was like, it wasn't fucking porn. It was Snapchat. Well, it was Snapchat porn and someone sent it to me just to try and hurt my ears and it worked. And it was in public, which is even better. It's like the 4th time I've had someone do this to me. This guy literally just goes, man, your friends are something else then. And I was weird. I didn't even feel like explaining the whole thing about how like I kind of encourage it because I talked about it on a YouTube channel with 1 million subs and that now they all engage in ear raping me together. But I just didn't even feel like telling him. It was too long of a story for the moment. But yeah, I walked out and I probably won't ever show my face in there for like a good month because let's be honest, I don't want to walk in and just be known as that guy. Hey, here's that guy. You see him over there? That's the kid that opened porn in front of all of us. But I thought you guys would enjoy hearing about this considering every time I've ever talked about me getting ear raped in public, it just seems to do unbelievably well and people like to laugh and, you know, engage in it to try and make it happen even more for another story to happen. And I don't know, I guess it's just fun for some of you guys. But if you're going to send me an ear rapey video or a video that's just going to hurt my ears, just do it on Twitter. Twitter is way easier because I have it on my computer and I can just like play the videos way faster. And yeah, do it on Twitter if you're going to do it. But yeah, anyway guys, I shouldn't even say that. Don't do it at all. Don't hurt my ears. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Leave a like if you did enjoy it. I'll see you guys out tomorrow. Peace.
Am I the asshole for helping my friend catch her boyfriend cheating? I, 27 female, and my friend Abby, 26 female, have known each other for our whole lives. Abby and her boyfriend Tony, 29 male, have been together for 3 years. Everything seemed to be going well between them, but over the last few months, things have started to go downhill. Abby has been telling me for months now that she is certain Tony has been cheating on her. However, she has no evidence. She just has a gut feeling that won't go away. After stressing out over it for months, she finally decided that she had to catch him in the act. A month ago, Abby came over to my house and told me that she had a huge favor to ask me. She told me that she knew I was Tony's type and he would go bonkers if I were to hit on him. She told me that she wanted me to accidentally bump into him at different places that he would go to. She would tell me in advance where he would be and what time he would be there. She then told me to gradually become more flirty over text and call in order to make it appear more real. I was hesitant at first, but Abby was crying and begging me to do this. She had to know the truth. I eventually gave in and went forward with the plan a couple of days later. To make a long story short, Tony fell for my fake advances almost immediately. Within the first week, he was saying how hot I was and how he's had a crush on me and that he wanted to hang out. The final nail in the coffin that confirmed everything all took place yesterday. We made plans to meet at an obscure motel with the intention of hooking up. Abby went to the motel before me and Tony in order to catch him red-handed. After me and Tony arrived, he gave me a hug and started making out with me. Abby jumped out of hiding and started screaming at him that they were over. She exposed him all over social media, which resulted in him getting trashed by most of their friends. Abby thanks me and says she finally got the closure that she needed. However, a few people are saying that what I did was tacky and immature. They're saying I should have stayed out of the relationship entirely. So, am I the asshole?
Hey, I'm Anika, and until the age of 17, I had a perfectly normal life. I was pretty, good in school, and in a happy relationship with my boyfriend Lewis. Well, at least that's what I thought, because one night, everything changed. I was on my way back home from ballet practice when a guy ran up to me and threw a bucket full of liquid on my face. At first, I thought it was a prank, but then my face started to burn more and more until I blacked out. When I woke up again, everything was dark. I thought the lights were off, but something was different. My whole upper body was hurting, and when I touched my face, I couldn't feel my eyes or nose. My whole face felt like an old margarita pizza, and all I had left was my mouth to breathe through. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. No light, no face. I wanted to cry, but I had no eyes, so instead I said, "Where am I? Where am I?" It was hard to speak without lips, but fortunately my right ear still worked. So I heard my mom when she said, "You're alive. Oh, my love, what have they done to you?" She was crying and hugging me. After she calmed down, she told me that someone had thrown acid in my face, and it had burned away my eyes, my nose, and lips. So it wasn't a nightmare. My face was really gone. But why would anyone do this to me? I'd always been a very friendly girl, and even when my classmates made fun of me, saying I wasn't smart, I never talked back. I just don't like conflict. But my anger quickly turned to shame when my boyfriend came to my hospital bed. Even though I couldn't see, I knew how ugly I must have looked to him. He asked me, "How are you?" But it didn't even sound like he was worried about me. I could even hear a bit of disgust in his voice. It felt like he had only come to visit me because it was his duty as my boyfriend. Because after just a few minutes, he left again. I never felt so bad before, and this time, I was able to cry. I could feel that somewhere under my skin, tears were forming. The day the police came to visit me, they wanted me to describe what happened, and they asked if I had any enemies or if someone had threatened me. I told them I couldn't think of anyone. But 2 years earlier, one of my old classmates had threatened me, saying, "Be careful, or I'll throw acid on you." But that was 2 years ago, and I never took it seriously. That girl had been jealous of me because I was in a relationship with Lewis. I knew that in my city of London, acid attacks were common within the Black and Muslim community, but I'm 100% white, and my parents are of Irish descent. After a month of investigation, the police found out what happened. They figured out that my old classmate who had threatened me 2 years before had an affair with my boyfriend Lewis behind my back. But because he didn't want to break up with me, she paid her cousin £200 to throw acid in my face. The police found the exact same acid that was thrown on me on her cousin's clothes. The police also took GPS data from his phone that showed he was very close to me on the night of the accident. The trial went on for several months. When the cousin was asked if he wanted to apologize to me, he started crying and said he was so sorry. But you could hear in his voice that he was only acting. He came up with one excuse after the other for why he'd thrown acid on me. He even said his parents had never loved him, and he needed the £200 his cousin gave him to pay off his debts. Listening to his excuses disgusted me, and even the judge told him to shut up because no one wanted to hear his lies anymore. In the end, both of them got 20-year prison sentences. But to be honest, I'm not sure if that's fair considering they've ruined my face for the rest of my life. And, if they behave well in prison, they might get out much earlier. I recently visited my former classmate in prison, the one who had ordered the acid attack. Of course, it was weird meeting her. I had no eyes to look at her directly, so all we could do was talk. I asked why she had done it, and she explained that she had always envied my beauty. She said it broke her heart when me and Lewis became a couple, and the only way to take him away from me was to destroy my beauty. At last, I asked her if she regretted what she had done, and she immediately said yes, because now she would have to spend the best years of her life inside prison. That's when I realized that some people truly only care about themselves. She didn't apologize or anything. She only regretted being caught for her crime. I gotta be honest, I still sometimes get angry about what happened to me. It was such a senseless crime where everybody involved lost. The hardest part is that I'll probably never find another boyfriend. After what happened to my face, my now ex-boyfriend Lewis cut off all contact with me. And I gotta admit that this hurt even more than the acid attack. But it won't stop me from living the good life. My parents recently bought me a guide dog, and to be honest, I like him even more than I liked my ex-boyfriend. And even without a boyfriend, I can still get pregnant using a sperm donor and have my own kids. I just hope that in a few decades, technology will advance far enough that my doctors can fix my eyes and face again. But luckily, there are many jobs for blind people like me. Right now, I'm working as a call center agent during the day, and I've also started practicing DJing as a new hobby. I guess all of us face tragedies and evil in our lives. And even though it wasn't my fault that someone threw acid in my face, it would be my fault if I let it make me become bitter and resentful. That's why I'm not calling for retribution, but for more police and harsher punishments to prevent this senseless violence. Because right now, acid attacks here in the UK are on the rise, and some of the victims are less than 10 years old. Thank you for listening to my story, and let me know in the comments how you would deal with losing your face.
My neighbors had security cameras that were pointed on my driveway and my backyard, not their house at all. I feel like I should mention that whenever I was outside, the wife was always super strange. I thought at first she just had social anxiety, which me too girl, like no judgment. But I would be outside mowing my yard in like sweats and a sweatshirt, and she would make her son or her husband go inside anytime I was outside. One time I'm outside pulling weeds, again in sweatpants and a baggy shirt, and her husband is mowing, and she screams at her husband to get off the mower and come inside. So I'm like, okay, strange, but whatever. I brushed it off because could have been anything. Maybe she just made dinner, wanted them to come inside, whatever, not my business. So then one day I'm coming home from work and it's a little past 3 a.m. and I notice a red beam on their house. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. But it was dark, so I couldn't really make out what it was. The next day I look up and it's security cameras, and the cameras look like they're pointed directly on my driveway and my backyard. So I'm telling my mom and friends about this, and they're all just acting like I'm paranoid. And honestly, I was like, okay, I probably am just being paranoid. But then friends were coming over to my house and they're like, no, Bailey, that's definitely pointed on your house. It was one of those long security cameras, so you could tell the general direction it was pointed to. And so me and my friends are brainstorming about something I could do to test this out. And I came up with the best idea. So my backyard has a 6-foot privacy fence, and I have a hot tub back there. So I should be able to go in the backyard in a bikini and feel completely comfortable. But I decided to take it one step further. I decided to mow my back lawn in the nude. So I'm on my mower and everything's bouncing. Definitely not a pretty sight. But I didn't really think anything was gonna come from this. I'm just thinking, hey, I'm getting a tan and mowing my lawn, no big deal. I shit you not, the very next day, I come home to see this.
Best day ever. Yeah.
My neighbors literally put their house up for sale the next day. And if that doesn't tell you those cameras were on my house, I don't know what would. If you don't want to show, don't spy.
Story time about how I faked being pregnant for 6 months. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I'm in my late 20s and I have a really successful career. I make plenty of money, I own my own house, and I have 2 cars. But I've always failed in relationships. I had a long-term relationship in my early 20s, but I broke up with him because he just wasn't pulling his weight. I paid for our extravagant lifestyle. He would basically help me with my work and then expect me to pay him. Also, I paid the rent, I paid for the cars, and I paid for every single dinner date we ever had. We also had a joint bank account, which was a huge mistake on my part, because ultimately I was the one earning all the money. After 4 years of dating, I decided to break up with him and I told him to move out of my house. I felt free and I started dating right away. I met this guy one night and he was amazing. He complimented me all the time and made me feel really good about myself. But here's the problem, I tend to fall in love really easily. After that night, that guy and I would talk every single day. He would come over to my place and we would have dinner, but the good thing about this guy was that he had his own money and he was pretty wealthy. His family was also really well off. I totally saw myself marrying this guy, but then eventually we broke up. I found out that he was cheating on me, but also he was doing some illegal stuff in the background. I decided to forgive him for the cheating and everything, but he still wanted to break up. I mean, I was totally shocked because I was forgiving him, but he had no intention of being in a committed relationship with me. So once again, I was single. I decided not to focus on guys at all. Instead, I started going out with my friends and focusing on my career. But you know how it goes. When you're not looking for love, it just knocks on your door. Which it kind of literally happened like that. I had some friends come over and they decided to bring some other people that I didn't know. There was one guy that showed up and I knew of him because he was friends with my other friends. He was really cute and we hit it off right away. He asked me out on a date, but I kept saying no because I just didn't want to get into anything. But he really won me over with his personality and I ended up saying yes. And after our first date, I literally thought I was falling in love with him. Like, here I go again. This time I knew that if I got into a relationship with this guy, he had to marry me. So early on in the relationship, I told him that my intention was to marry him, and if his intention wasn't to marry me, then we needed to stop dating. He promised me up and down that he did want to marry me, so I stayed in the relationship. I knew that I wanted him to move in right away, which I know sounds crazy, but I was kind of desperate at this point. My goal in life was to have kids, and I just wasn't getting there. It took me about a week to convince him to move in, and he finally said yes. But he basically told me that he wanted to continue living his life the way he had been before. In other words, he wanted to continue hanging out with his friends whenever he wanted, and I said fine. I was just happy he was committing to something. Then I realized I had to get pregnant in order to tie him down. After I finally convinced him to move in, I knew that I needed to get pregnant as soon as possible. My goal in life is to be a mom, and because I had so many failed relationships, I knew that I needed to make this one work. The first 2 months of living with my boyfriend were really good, but of course I quickly wanted to get pregnant. I also knew that the only way he would marry me was if I got pregnant, so I got to work. I stopped taking the pill and I didn't tell him, which I know sounds terrible, but here's the problem, I was not getting pregnant. I was off the pill for 3 weeks and nothing happened. I got so desperate, I went to the mall and got a pregnant woman to pee on a stick, which of course came out with a positive result. I went home that night and showed my boyfriend the stick and he was so surprised. He asked me if I was taking the pill, which I said yes, but he got really upset and told me that I probably got pregnant on purpose, which I denied. But then he said the magical words. He said, "I guess we have to get married now." I was so beyond happy, but the problem was that I really wasn't pregnant. So I started gaining weight like crazy. Anytime he left the house, I would eat tons of junk food. I would go late at night to the supermarket and buy tons of junk food. I get Doritos, chips, cookies, and cake and ice cream. I basically ate anything that was sugary. 2 months later, I had gained about 30 pounds, and it looked like I was really pregnant. But my relationship started to fall apart. My boyfriend was upset all the time, blaming me for having gotten pregnant. 6 months into my fake pregnancy, he decided to break up with me. I begged him, but he said he didn't want to be with me and that he needed to be free. That's when I dropped the whole charade and told him I wasn't pregnant. He literally blew up in my face. He actually grabbed a chair and threw it into the TV. He grabbed his stuff and ran away. Of course, he blocked me from everything, so I couldn't contact him. 3 days later, 2 of my cars had been stolen from my driveway, and part of me knew that it was him. But a week after that, he actually reached out and asked me if I wanted to try at the relationship again. But here's the thing, he doesn't have much money, so he can't live the lifestyle I was giving him. I'm pretty sure he only wants to come back because of the money, but I kind of still love him. What should I do?
I had a boyfriend that proposed to me and 2 other women all in the same week. Now, I was dating this guy for a couple years, and one day we're at a baseball game, and he asked me, "What would you say if I asked you to marry me?" So it wasn't an actual proposal, but I was like, yes, of course, yes. So this guy would go to the bars all the time, wasn't an uncommon thing. So one time he was out at the bar and it was like a little after 3 a.m. The bars in Indiana close at 3 a.m. and I still hadn't heard from him. I'm texting him, I'm calling him, and he's not answering. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go over to his house. I go over to his house and I notice a car I've never seen before. I walk in the house to see him and a girl standing in the living room. I'm immediately suspicious, and even if I don't say anything, I think you could read it all over my face because he just grabbed my hand and took me into his bedroom and shut the door. He literally just left her out there without saying anything. And he's explaining to me it's nothing, that's just his girl best friend. But it's weird how I've never met this girl best friend, right? Funny how that works. But I'm like, okay, was she planning to stay the night? Like, what is she doing after bars? Like, it's after 3 a.m. Why is she here? And he said that she just brought him home and that she was leaving, yada, yada. And he never went out of the room to go tell her bye or to leave or anything. We literally just stayed in the room and fell asleep. And I even told him, I'm like, okay, well, you're going to tell her bye? He was like, no, she'll be fine, which, again, was so weird. But I wrote it off until this next time. So another time, I'm at his house, and again, he went out to the bar with his guy friends, no big deal. And kind of like before, it's after 3 a.m., still haven't heard from him, texting him, calling him, but his iPad is blowing up. And his iPad and his iPhone were connected to iCloud, so every message he was getting on his iPhone, he was also getting on his iPad. So I'm looking through all the messages, and I find the one with his girl best friend. And I see the same day he asked me if I would marry him, he also asked his girl best friend the same question. I also found text messages with him talking to this girl he had met at the bar. He was buying her drinks and she was sending him nudes. So I am livid. When I tell him that I found all these text messages on his iPad, suddenly he replies. He's like, I'm going to be home, just calm down. I was anything but calm. Not gonna lie, I was super petty. I broke his iPad, I broke his TV, I did the most. I was done. So as I'm starting to leave, he pulls up. And I'm like, why the fuck would you ask your girl best friend to marry you the same day you asked me? And he was like, well, I'm turning 30 and I just wanted to make sure I had other options in case you said no. I'm like, you dumb motherfucker, I told you I would say yes. Like, that doesn't even make sense. The breakup has a lot more to that story, but after we did break up, I found out he asked even another girl that same week the same question.
Am I the asshole for not letting my parents into my son's life after they secretly tested his DNA? I met my wife Sonia at a restaurant where she worked as a waitress. It took me a while to finally be her boyfriend. I introduced her to my parents and they voiced out their disapproval after meeting her. My parents think that Sonia is only using me to achieve her American dream. I told them that that is racist and I am offended by their assumption. After my wife accepted my marriage proposal, we asked for both our families' blessing. Her parents were happy for us, but my parents were gutted and refused to give their blessing. Because of this, we decided to elope and only invited my brother and Sonia's best friends to be our witnesses. Long story short, now that we're 2 years married and after we welcomed our first child, my parents started to reach out to us. My kind-hearted wife didn't think twice to welcome my parents into our lives. She let them meet our baby 2 days after being discharged from the hospital. My parents visit us regularly, and one day while Dad and Mom were playing with Gareth, Mom said something along the lines of, "Aren't you the cutest baby ever? I am so glad to confirm you are indeed my grandson." She didn't know I was around because she looked startled when I said, "What is that supposed to mean?" Mom tried to change the subject, but I insisted she tell me what she's talking about. Mom sat me down and apologized first before telling me that they had Gareth's DNA tested to make sure that he was my child. I was speechless for a moment, and before I blew up from anger, I told Dad to give me my son and they better leave before I lose whatever respect I had left for them. My mom was very apologetic and said it's because they don't trust my wife and that our son looks nothing like me. I didn't argue anymore and told them to get out of my house. My wife was in the kitchen preparing for lunch and told her my parents had an emergency and that's why they left. Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that his daughter cannot have her own room in our house? So my boyfriend, 30 male, and I, 24 female, have been together for 2 years, and we just bought our first house together. We move in at the end of the month. My boyfriend has a 4-year-old daughter, Kate, from a previous relationship. I love Kate with all my heart. She lives with my boyfriend's ex and comes to visit us for short stays and sleepovers, more often in the summertime. Our new house is about a 30-minute drive from Kate's mom's house. It has 3 bedrooms, a master bedroom, and 2 smaller bedrooms. We are converting one of the rooms to be an office for my boyfriend and me to work from. That leaves just 1 spare bedroom. Kate was really nervous about us moving so far away, and my boyfriend has reassured her that she will still get to visit all the time, and she will have her own bedroom waiting for her whenever she wants. My issue with this is that I don't want Kate to treat the only spare bedroom as her personal bedroom. Rather, I want it to be thought of as a guest bedroom. Of course, Kate can stay there whenever she wants to. This isn't part of the debate. I want her to feel welcomed all the time, but I don't want it to be only her room. I don't want it to be filled with her toys, her clothes, so nobody else feels comfortable to sleep in there. I don't think it's fair that a room is reserved for someone who is not there 90% of the time. In addition, my boyfriend and I are planning to have a child of our own, and I want to make sure that when that happens, we will have space for them to live. I can only imagine the circus in a few years if we have to tell Kate we are taking away her room to give it to her new sibling. That is why I want to set expectations now, that Kate is always welcome, but she will only be welcomed as a guest. Now, my boyfriend thinks that I'm the one being unreasonable. He thinks that Kate needs her own room for stability, especially as she feels we are moving far away from her. He says we can keep a pull-out sofa in our office for guests to stay on and call the spare room Kate's room. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. Kate does not need her own room. She doesn't even use it often.
Most parents will send their kids to a boarding school for drug problems or behavioral issues, but my parents sent me for a different reason. If you don't know already, my stepdad was pretty abusive towards me starting at a young age. If you want to know more about that, check out my childhood playlist. And one day I just had enough of it, and I walked out of my house with nothing on me. I didn't take anything, I just walked out. So I ran away. And a little less than 2 months later, police found me a third way across the country. So my parents decided to send me to a boarding school right after they found me so that I couldn't run away, so that I had to stay somewhere. She wanted to make sure that I was safe. My mom wanted to make sure I was safe and that I couldn't run away and that I couldn't harm myself. If you're wondering how I got a third way across the country, just don't. Just don't. I don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry. It wasn't fun. And you may be thinking, instead of sending me to boarding school, why didn't my mom just kick out my stepdad? Because he was the reason why I ran away, right? Well, my stepdad is a very talented manipulator, and he convinced my mom that I was a very, very disrespectful child, that I just broke all the rules just because I wanted to, and that I was on a bunch of drugs and all of this other stuff that's just not true. And my mom unfortunately believed him and kept me in the boarding school for 1.5 years. Were things any better when I got home? Not really. My stepdad had calmed down a bit, like he wasn't yelling and hitting as much, but he was still the same person. I still felt the same vibes from him. I still saw him as my abuser. So living with him after the boarding school was just as difficult as living with him before. And I had begged and pleaded the people at the boarding school not to send me back home. And they told me that they wouldn't. They would find a different option for me to live. And they didn't do that. They just sent me home. They didn't give 2 fucks. They did not give any fucks. They just said, oh, you're done with the program? Okay, go back right into your abusive household. Because that'll make things a lot better. I don't know. Fuck.